The Sheet with Jeff Marek goes at noon Pacific time, so you watch him and then catch up with us, or you watch us and then you catch up with him. And he joins us typically on Fridays, although the last time we talked to him was on the eve of Canada-USA. I told you we were going to win. Have no fear. Sydney doesn't let us lose those games.
Or Connor doesn't let us lose those games. Or Marner doesn't let us. Or Jordan Binnington doesn't let us lose those games.
That's right.
Yeah, here we are 7 days later, 8 days later, actually, and we're talking about still the Four Nations. I mean, the Cass, I'll tell you what, like, I know we'll hop on Vancouver here and that, the disappointment that was last night against Anaheim. But I wonder how far the Cascade is going to go here coming off of that. It's essentially tournament where, you play 4 games. Like, that's it. Like, it was 4 games, but didn't it feel like an entire season's worth of drama and like,
oh my gosh,
we're pulling it. Like, what is this going to mean for the future of Jordan Binnington? It's 4 games. Like, mind you, it's 4 high pressure games, and now also, like, all of a sudden there's the newfound hatred that pretty much every market outside of the ones that they're in have for the Tkachuk brothers, which is fantastic. Like, all of a sudden there's something for the NHL to legitimately hang their hat on and say, you know what, last year when we said, no soap operas and no drama, scrub that. We've got the Tkachuks and we want them front and center. Thank you very much.
4 games too, in which guys got tenderized so badly that they're missing games. Like, Tkachuks missed games, both of them.
Well, Canada made them play too hard. You understand? The Canadians made them play too hard, and now they can't go back to the.
And maybe Connor McDavid should miss some games.
It's not just the NHL players getting tenderized; it's the emotional drain on us fans, Jeff.
Yes,
I'm not sure I can. Next year, I have to sweat through a quarterfinal as well and a semifinal. Oh my God!
You know what?
I'm ready for that emotion.
You know what's interesting too, Maddie and Blake. I'll tell you. This one had its own life on social media, as we all know. And as much as this was a sort of a primer for the Olympics for the players, I think for the fans as well. Because now we have a year to work on our chirps and our trolls. Like, we got to make sure that we all have our games tight, just like players have their games tight. You don't want to be caught not being able to fire one off at a moment's notice. So we've got a year now to work on our trolls and our snipe backs here. We need to get in game shape, folks.
Jeff, I attend Jason Seattle every year, and we are fond of. We have health care. Clap, 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 clap. Anyways.
That's a good one.
We'll see you in Italy. We'll bring all this conversation back up next year in Milano Cortina. Okay. So you watch a game like that for the Vancouver Canucks, where you blow another 2-0 lead, lose going away, as it turns out, and Tocchet says, we abandoned the game plan. I'm disappointed in the lack of grit, and, quote, we kinda gave in. Yeah. What does a game or a performance like that do in terms of setting you up for the final week before trade deadline?
What is it? 3 games before trade deadline here for the Vancouver Canucks. I still is it 2? Okay, I apologize. 2 games until trade deadline for Vancouver, and I still have a hard, because one of the questions, what's Vancouver going to do? Take the step backwards, go forward? Like, I still have a hard time with the idea of the Vancouver Canucks, taking, I know everything's a bunny hop here, but even taking a slight move backwards when you consider this has to be full court press on let's impress Quinn Hughes and let's give Quinn Hughes a reason to stay. This is Operation Keep Hughes, and also ticket prices going up once again in Vancouver. It's going to be a tough sell if we're taking a step back here, but the prices are going up. So I still think that this is a team that looks at themselves and says, like, look, we have a shot at the playoffs. I know that, Calgary may hit a speed wobble here, but, St. Louis and Utah are right in that conversation now. They've both won 3 games in a row, and it's going to be anything but easy. No one's handing them that spot. I just don't see the Vancouver Canucks throwing in the towel or taking a step back. Not when, the mission is keep Quinn Hughes in the mix.
Well, the owner was.
Oh, and by the way, sorry, can I just jump on one more thing? Mm-hmm. You guys are there for all the games. I haven't seen all of the games, but is that the best period you've seen Tyler Myers play this season?
He's his last 2 years have been pretty good.
Yeah, he struggled early in the season, but he got it back together. Yeah. And when he's appropriately slotted, he's fine. To your point, I mean, the owner didn't want to rebuild when they were dreadful, like bottom 5 team in the league. He was still trying to retool. So, no, I think you're quite wise, and particularly citing Operation Keep Quinn and ticket prices, plus this owner's history that they are going to either make hockey trades or at least not be full-on sellers. I allow for a narrow channel where Jim Rutherford and Patrick Alvin can go to him and say, look, Francesco, let's sell off Boeser, Suter, Soucy, Forbert, collect some assets, and we're going to go try and land a big piece in the summer. I give that there's a narrow channel there. I give it a small percentage chance.
The only I don't disagree, but at the same time, I do wonder, when you're this close to a playoff spot, it's tough to go to your owner and say we're throwing in the towel.
Yep.
Essentially, we're throwing money out the window. So that would be one of the caveats there, certainly.
They just don't like to miss the playoffs at the best of times. And when you're in a playoff spot on deadline day, which is very plausible for the Vancouver Canucks at this point, you're right, they won't. But I just don't see a path. Like, a lot of the times we sit in our chairs here as media members and just go, why don't they do this? Why don't they do that? And it seems so simple to us. I'll be honest. Like, I don't see the path for them getting better. Like, outside of them just finding their game miraculously, and periodically that happens, but with this particular, it's not a great looking forward set anymore. There's not a lot. Them at their highest level is still not that good. I don't know what they're supposed to do at this point, this team, given their assets.
So much of it is going to revolve around the big topic in Vancouver, obviously, and that's Elias Pettersson, who, by the way, was I right about this? Did I see that he had 0 offensive zone starts last night against the Anaheim Ducks?
Yeah, that's what Adam Kirsenblatt of the Hockey News had. Yep.
Okay, so zero offensive zone starts for Elias Pettersson and Jake DeBrusk last night. That is more than a little bit surprising, and yes, kind of shaking your head and wondering about, the comments that Rick Tocchet made after the game about, the grit and the compete and all these types of things that we're used to hearing. And then you say to yourself, well, give Elias Pettersson a chance here. I know that he's getting outshot every night by everybody's blue liner on the opposite team, but like, not that this team is completely going to come and go with Elias Pettersson, but you got to find some way to put this guy in a situation where he's going to have a chance to do something. And having him start in the neutral zone or the defensive zone is not that thing. I mean, maybe just like from here to the end of the season, as long as he's healthy enough to play, just spoon feed him offensive zone starts over and over and over and over again. I don't know. Like, I've never coached a day in my life, and I know that I'm talking from the back seat and don't have a hand on the wheel and insert cliche X here, but this one kind of seems like a natural to me. Like, just feed him offensive zone starts. You're going to need him. If you're going to do anything, you're going to need Pettersson to do something.
And this comes after a game, Jeff, where he played just 2 shifts in the final 6 and change in the third against LA and didn't touch the ice in overtime. So, no.
The other one is, you can't, like, man, Lankinen, love him. Sheloffs, I don't know that it's there at the NHL right now for him.
No.
And
he played well on the weekend too,
and that's being generous. But a couple of those clear shots, he, like the Gauthier goal, he's got to have the Strome goal. He's got to have, like, there's a couple that you just can't let in. And then you talk about cascade. Look up and down the bench when those goals go in.
Yeah, well, and as we said earlier, great shot, Vetrano, but you either got to get the Vetrano or the Gauthier one. You either got to get the Strome or the Lacombe one, right? Like, make 2 of those saves, and your team's going overtime, and you're getting a point.
But when there's a Saran wrap on 2 goals, that's an issue as well. Like you look at the Vegas game last night, they didn't play their best, obviously, because they gave up 5 goals to Chicago, but they scored 7. So, and I'm not saying the Canucks are ever going to score 7 goals. That's a month's worth of goals for them. But you can get to 4 yourself kind of regularly. Like, that's not a crazy thing in today's NHL. But the Vancouver Canucks can't get to 4 goals ever.
More than 3 once in the last 20 games, I think. Now.
Yeah, now 20. Yeah.
That's why, and then that's why you wonder about, a player like Rickard Rakell come trade deadline time. We know how this Vancouver management loves to shop in Pittsburgh. Not that Kyle Dubas has to let go of Rickard Rakell. He still has term There's no real pressure there, but you do wonder if you're going for it and you say to yourself, we need goals. I mean, Raquel's having himself a real nice season in Pittsburgh, and that'd be one of the players that I would wonder about here.
Of all the centers that are available, because that's the biggest key, because you could make the argument that if there was somebody actually setting up these wingers, that like Boeser and DeBrusk have been relatively quiet here. If there's a playmaking center, maybe. Like, is there anybody that will be, and there's not going to be any screaming deals, but who's the best bang for the buck center that you can think of that's available? Because a lot of these guys are older guys with not a lot of foot speed, known more for grit. Like, Nelson's a goal scorer more than a setup guy. And, I don't know if Braden Shen's setting people up at the same rate he used to. Like,
I don't know the Braden Shen. Like, when you consider how St. Louis is playing,
yeah,
I don't think there's any guarantees. Like, once upon a time, we'd look at this and go like, oh yeah, they're going to move Shen and Parayko's going to be gone. Is it going to be Hofer's time? And I think that Doug Armstrong is like, look, we got a shot at the playoffs here. Vancouver's, roller skating down a gravel road. Here comes the Calgary Flames. We expect them to, to sort of, pardon the pun, but flame out at a certain point. What do you have in Utah? You don't know. Maybe the road clears here for the St. Louis Blues. So as much as we want to say like, yeah, Braden Shen could be a guy for someone, if you're Doug Armstrong and all of a sudden this team is hot and you've just won 3 games in a row and you're looking good and the goalie's rejuvenated coming off of the 4 Nations, and you're St. Louis Blues, you're saying like, no way. The one team that I keep coming back to here, and again, so much of it is based on price, but I don't think that there are, and again, so much of it is based on price, and prices will be high for some of these players. I don't think there's any untouchables in Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
None. No untouchables whatsoever. Some prices are extremely high. Some prices could be extremely low. Some players you might just want to get rid of. But if I'm any team out there, then they're a great, like Buffalo is that one team that you look at least I do anyhow. I look at them and say, there are so many pieces I really like here. There are so many players I really like. I just don't like all these guys together.
Right.
But individually, I really, really like them. Like, did not get that feeling from the Buffalo Sabres. And again, like we all know what the consequences are for the Buffalo Sabres at the end of the season. But I don't think there are any untouchables there. There are some that are going to be more difficult. Like JJ Peterka is a favorite of Terry Pegula, much like Zemgus Girgensons was previous. But I still think that if you're a team that's wanting to go, big game hunting, want to make a splash, I think Kevin Adams is very much open for business. Now, it might just be a situation where they move Jason Zucker and that's it. Might be. But if you're willing to pay the price, I think Buffalo's open for just about anything.
See, I would have thought Canucks have been attached to Zucker in the past. I would have thought Zucker over Raquel.
Could be.
But maybe they're done in the rental
price
business,
lower.
right?
Maybe
they're
done.
Cheaper. Yeah, exactly. So Saravelli reports they've made a 5x8 offer to Boeser for $40 total million, which is, I mean, there's just no way. Like AFP Analytics thinks he's a 7x9.3 guy, so like that's almost $65 million total. I don't think there's any way that Brock is going to settle for $40 million, no matter how much he loves Vancouver. I mean, it's almost an offer that they know is going to be rejected. It's almost an offer that shows the player the door. But so what do you think? Are they going to keep him as their quote-unquote own rental? Do you think there'll be a last gasp? I mean, things do change quickly with the Canucks. Lankinen and other contract matters resolved, in a day sort of thing.
Yeah.
Or do you think they're going to be inclined to trade here? Like, could you get Middlestat for Boeser right now with how down Colorado is on him? What do you think they're doing with Boeser?
This is all going to be done in concert with the owner. How important are playoffs to the owner? And if they're important, like I do, and with the salary cap going up and a pretty vibrant free agent class this offseason for forwards, I would look at this and say, like, maybe the management just looks at it and says, you know what, that's fine. At the end of it, Boeser wants to leave Minnesota, New Jersey, wherever. We can take that money and we can fill that spot. We can take that dough and we can bring someone else in here. But again, too, like so much of it is based on like, what's the return? What are you getting back from any of these teams? And I don't think that Vancouver if they're going to make a move for Boeser, I don't think they want green bananas coming back. I think they want players. They want guys that are here now, right? No picks and prospects. Again, Operation QH. But my thought on this one is they keep him. They keep him and they ride it out to the end of the summer, at the end of the season, trying to make the playoffs.
Risking that they may come away empty-handed in the hole.
Yep. But again, like if this is the race, if this is the race to the playoffs, if that's what this is, and that's the word from up on high, like a team like the Calgary Flames, for example. Like one of the things that we wonder about, could the Calgary Flames be this year's edition of the Philadelphia Flyers, which essentially was no, last minute, yes, we are going to move all of these players, right? There was the like, oh my goodness, the Philadelphia Flyers are going to make the playoffs. What a job John Tortorella's done. Man, this is the quickest rebuild we've ever seen. And it was no, we're not going to trade, and then they finally did. Is Calgary going to be that team? I don't think Vancouver is, but does that open a door then for Vancouver to jump into? That's what I wonder about.
Yeah. Since we last talked to you, Kevin Lankinen has signed an extension. What do you see here by way of, your thoughts on the deal, but also what do you think that means for the future of Thatcher Demko in Vancouver?
It's insurance. Always good to have insurance, especially at the most important position on the ice. I don't know that Kevin Lankinen is a 65 game a year type goaltender. He's probably a 45 to 50 at best goaltender. So much of this is going to depend on Thatcher Demko. Obviously, if he can get and keep the hospital bracelet off, you have a really good tandem. If not, you have a really good goaltender for 50 games of the season. And then you look for your new battery. But I do like it. He's come in and distinguished himself in a really challenging season for the Vancouver Canucks. Like you would hate to think where Vancouver would be without Kevin Lankinen right now. To me, and it's like this is the sort of the sweet spot of the bat for goaltenders right now of his ilk. Or actually, I mean, you look at the goaltenders that have signed, like your Mackenzie Blackwoods, I suppose, right around that $5 million mark. That seems to be the going rate for these guys. I like the deal. I don't think that he's going to be like a 60 game a year starter. He's a 45 to 50 for me, but you need to have insurance. Like you need to have insurance. He's distinguished himself. He showed that he can play. He'd be a great battery with Thatcher Demko. But even if Demko's injury woes continue, at least you have at least one solid goaltender back there.
Yeah, and as we've talked about, if Sheloffs rises to the occasion, maybe you have an expendable part in Demko. But if he's not, then I think you're quite right.
If you're the Canucks, do you bother going into your cupboard? The Canucks have got a couple of blue chippers in Vilander and Lekramaki that both of them might be in the lineup by the end of the season here on a regular basis, depending on how things go here. But with the desperation that we've talked about, do you bother touching the couple of blue chippers that you do have?
Throw Sawyer Mineo into that conversation.
Yeah, and maybe even DPD here too, who's shown so well at such a young age too.
He looks good, man.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun.
You guys are closer to it, but like I look at Vancouver, I'm like, I like this. I like him. Or the first round picks.
Well, certainly those. I think those are absolutely in play. Like they have no use for those. This administration.
I don't know that you'd completely take every tin off the shelf. Let's put it that way. I still think you have to leave a couple of tins on the shelf, but taking one off the shelf,
that's something.
What you're getting back, yeah.
I know people are saying this isn't a great draft. There are still going to be very serviceable third-line centers, middle six wingers, second pair defensemen available
that will play for the next administration.
You could be right there, but I think we're a little down on this draft. Prematurely.
But it's not so much advice as it is prediction. Like they just will not have any use for that player. that is an asset for this administration now.
Yeah,
and they're produced to win now.
Yeah, just as an aside too, I've always had a hard time with, oh, this isn't a good draft. Oh, this isn't a good draft, because we're projecting 5 years out. Like, look, if you redid last year's draft, where would Cole Hudson be? It wouldn't be in the second round. I assure you. And this has been the history.
All the Hudsons would have been taken earlier.
Exactly. Lane 2, absolutely. There's another one coming up at BU too. But I look, the draft are lottery tickets, right? Draft picks are lottery tickets. There are some that are better gambles than others. There's some that have better chance of hitting than others, but you're essentially dealing with lottery tickets. And I've always fully been of the belief you try to get yourself as many lottery tickets as possible. That's why I kind of, you always hear it from scouts, and like, they're at the rink every day and they're following a lot closer than I am. But whenever I hear, I don't think this draft is any good, I don't know. That pill goes down sideways. That's a tough swallow, because we're projecting 5 years out here. Not right now, but 5 years out.
Lastly, I'd like to have a little something different for you at the end.
Oh, yeah. What do you got? All right.
So, Elias Pettersson, 447 points, 10th all-time with the Vancouver Canucks. He and JT were in a derby for that spot before Miller was traded. Boeser, 420 points, 13th all-time in Vancouver Canucks scoring history. Quinn Hughes, with his assist in Los Angeles, ties Ryan Kessler and Brendan Morrison for 16th. And Jeff, by the end of next year, I could see Quinn Hughes passing both Brock Boeser and Elias Pettersson, either because they're both gone or because he just bypasses Elias Pettersson in one more season. He leads their team in scoring by 20 points as a defenseman. 23 points. It's crazy.
It's fresh insanity too. And he'll be the first to say, like, I'm not at 100% here. Like, I don't know, again, so much of this has to be find a way to keep this guy here. Like, you have one of the most special players in the NHL, period. Like, nobody else does it the same way that Quinn Hughes does. Like, even on that overtime winner against Los Angeles, holding onto the puck, going down the side that way, and opening it up for Connor Garland, just perfectly, just dragging the Kings player along with him and freeing that up. Like, this is, and it's just like beer hockey for him, right? Like, I'm just watching him make this play. Like, it's just a casual Tuesday 9:30 game at your local arena. Like, it's easy breezy. I know you've talked about it before. We all have. He's just such an elite, special, peerless player out there.
And they're squandering his prime, which is, I think, another reason why you're going to see them not be full on sell mode at the deadline. We're fresh out of time, buddy, but great catching up. You have a marvelous weekend, and look forward to talking to you next week.
7 days, gentlemen, 7 days.